so let me talk about the lab that you turned in today, or maybe didn't do, or whatever it might be. Okay. So again, the purpose isn't to make your life miserable, but so you could use technology or computers to do statistics for data sets that are too large to process by hand. Okay, so I'll just write that on the board. Okay, so the purpose of the labs is to use technology to process data that is too big to do by hand. All right, and because you had like 30 numbers, okay, for like the longboard surf data set or something. Okay, longboard versus shortboard. I think there were 30 numbers for the longboard and 30 numbers for the surfboard, shortboard, or maybe it was 25 or something like that. Okay, what was that? Something. Okay, there were a lot of numbers, and the point wasn't so you would do this by hand, try to find the median, or add all the numbers up and divide by 30 to do the mean. Okay, and then because then the standard deviation is even more problematic, right? Because then you'd have to find the square and do that for all of them. So, so with if you use Excel or StatCrunch, it's a lot easier. Okay, so with Excel, you could open up the data file in Excel directly. You don't have to retype the numbers or anything like that. Okay, again, these things are not to be an exercise in tediousness, but to use a computer to do things quickly. Now, some might argue that learning how to use the computer in of itself is even harder. Okay, but all of you guys figured out how to use a cell phone, right? You probably all have a smartphone, and you figured out how to use it, and you can use it to send text messages or whatever. And nobody complains about that, okay? So, in Excel, it's the same, all right? In the beginning, but you probably, maybe you have a grandparent who wants nothing to do with a smartphone because they feel like it's too complicated for them to learn, and they're just happy using the regular landline telephone, okay? And they have no desire to send a text message, and they'd rather send postcards or handwritten letters, okay? And that's fine, okay? But if you have that attitude towards Excel or StatCrunch or whatever technology is available, you're limiting yourself and ultimately missing out on the ability to process larger data sets. Okay, so using Excel, you can just open the data directly in Excel, the data file directly in Excel, and you can calculate the mean using probably a formula called average. Okay, and then you put in the range of the data cells. So maybe it's like from row B1 to AF1 or something like that. Okay, this is notation. This is the cells that contain the data. And anytime you're trying to use a computer program to do something, it might be helpful. Your most powerful resource is the computer itself. Just go to Google or whatever search engine and just type in, how do I calculate the average or the mean using Excel? And there will be tons of resources for you. How do I find the standard deviation with Excel? Okay, or you don't even have to type in all those words. You can just say standard deviation Excel, and your first hit is going to show you how to do standard deviation. Okay, and I don't remember, but it's probably I think it's STDEV or something, or STDEV or something. Whatever it is, just search online and you just put in the cells that have the data, and you do that. And you can also find the median the same way. And the quartiles might be a little bit more complicated, but you're probably going to find the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile. Right. Does that make sense? Okay. Now the histogram, I know a lot of you guys also had trouble with the histogram and you tried watching the video, but maybe it didn't work, okay? So I said, okay, if you can't do it using Excel, just try doing it by hand. And the idea behind the histogram is you basically have a bin and you have a frequency. And so you count, how many, between the numbers 0 and 4, how many surfers went surfing, and maybe you counted 3 people, and then between 5 and 9 there were 6 people or something. And so you would have created bins that way and then made a histogram, or if you used Excel, it would have done it for you automatically, but I know some of you guys ran into problems there. Okay. This week I need to, again, I'm going to have to modify the lab a little bit. So just check the homework page. I know some of you guys will print the homework page tonight and maybe not look back. So if I could just ask you guys to check back at least by Thursday, okay? Thursday evening, I'll have the full lab fleshed out in terms of what you need to do, okay? Or at least what I require. And then again, just like anything else, if you're not sure how to do something, just go on the internet and say, how do I do this with Excel? Okay, and that should at least get you in the right direction. Is that okay? Questions? Yes.
My computer did not want to download the data. It did it before, but on the second time I tried to download it from my laptop, it didn't want to download it.
Okay. I don't know what to say. So, okay. I'll check and make sure it works on my own computer, and I'll go. Yes.
So the actual graph, like the histogram, we didn't have to do it on Excel. We could have done it on paper, but we could have done the calculations on Excel.
Yeah, the intention was for you to do everything on Excel, but I know on the Facebook group some students said they were having trouble with the Excel thing. Okay, so I said, okay, for this lab you can do it by hand. All right. This next one you're going to be creating scatter plots. I really want you guys to use the computer for that. So whether it's Excel or StatCrunch, they'll show you how to do scatter plots on StatCrunch also. Please use the computer. It's going to be much better than trying to do things by hand. Yes?
Is StatCrunch free? Or
StatCrunch is not free, and that's why I'm not requiring it. And then Excel is also not free. Okay? So if you don't have Excel already, there's a bunch of spreadsheet programs out there that can do work. Okay? So there's OpenOffice or LibreOffice. These are, they have their own free version of Excel. Okay? Is there something funny?
It was just funny how you said, like, it's not, like, there's, piracy and stuff.
Okay, so, it's, yeah. There are people who obtain copies of software without paying for it. I don't promote that, and I'm personally not a fan, but, to each, I guess, if you want to do something, that's up to you and your own conscience. But I think a lot of students do have Excel, and if you don't, you can use OpenOffice or LibreOffice. And if you would rather pay for StatCrunch, I think it's $12. You can also do that. Okay, and it's like a 6-month subscription. Yes. Sure.
So is the point to if we do it on Excel, is the point to print it out and hand it in if we do the histograms?
I think so. Again, the point is so you could use technology to do all of these things, right? So if you created a graph on the computer, it would just make sense to print it from the computer, right? you wouldn't ever write an email to someone and then say, okay, well, I did that. Thank goodness. I'm going to write it on hand and then now put it in the mail and send it up, okay? You just send it via email, and then maybe if they don't have email, maybe you would print it out and email or snail mail the letter. So I think it just makes sense to print it. Yeah, I prefer that over emailed versions just because the one quarter I accepted, I got so much crap in my email, so I don't want to have to deal with that. So yes.
I guess why I'm asking is because I tried doing the add-ins and all of following the video, but then I couldn't find it, and I tried looking for it in the help, and it said that the Excel I'm using 2011 does not include those the histogram release. So I had to download something else, and it just couldn't.
Yeah.
Excel 2011 doesn't have the data analysis
It
package?
said it does the intro tool pack or.
Okay. Then okay, I will have to rethink that. And 2011 is the Mac version, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with that. So okay, well, so maybe the histogram thing doesn't work, but I know for sure it can do scatter plots, okay? Unless Microsoft really just changed things up. But I'm absolutely sure it can do a scatter plot and best fit line. So this week's lab should be okay. Yes?
That's only for the graph, right? The questions that you want us to answer, we can just write it on the paper?
You can write it on paper,
Yeah.
okay? And the intention was to use the computer to calculate those things, okay? So I hope you guys figured that out instead of punching in 30 numbers by hand. Or you okay. Who punched 30 numbers in by hand? Okay, that's fine. But it was tedious, right?
Yeah.
And that was not my intention. The intention was to use a computer to make your life easier, okay? At least you used a calculator and didn't add it by hand. Yes, question?
For the histogram, if we just label the amount instead of saying 0 to 4, like 4 people got this much and like 15 people got that much, would that be inaccurate? Instead of doing like 0 to 4, if you just put the amount of numbers and then.
But you still need a range or a bin, even if the bin is only one number.
Yeah, one number, like suppose like 4
A single
people
number
got,
bin.
Yeah, single number bin.
That's still a bin, okay?
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
As long
so
as
that's
it's-
fine. Okay, well, I'm gonna end that there just to talk about the